They said experience was valuable until my new boss decided I was too old to be useful. What he didn't know was that I was about to use every single year of experience to quietly build something powerful, something that would change both our lives forever. I had worked in the same company for over 23 years. Through recessions, mergers, layoffs, and late-night emergency deadlines, I stuck around and always delivered. I wasn't flashy, I wasn't political, I just got the job done. I was known for it. Clients trusted me. My coworkers came to me when they needed real help, not corporate lingo. So when our longtime manager retired and they brought in a hotshot 35-year-old from Silicon Valley to modernize operations, I wasn't worried. At least, not at first. His name was Chad. He walked in wearing a tailored suit, flashy watch, and an attitude like he invented oxygen. The first thing he did was gather the entire department and announce that some legacy systems and legacy employees need to go if this company wants to scale. Everyone looked around nervously. I just kept my head down, focused on my reports. But I noticed it right away. He never made eye contact with me, never asked for input, never looped me into meetings I used to lead. Then came the comments. We need fresh thinking, not old habits. We need speed over experience. And finally, after 3 months of being sidelined, he called me into his office. Dan, he said with a fake smile, you've been a pillar here for a long time, but honestly, your methods are outdated. The company's moving in a different direction. We're letting you go. Nothing personal. I didn't scream. I didn't argue. I just nodded and walked out. But inside, something burned like I hadn't felt in years. It wasn't just anger. It was betrayal. Disrespect. I wasn't old. I was experienced. And now I had something Chad would never have, a fire to prove him wrong. That same night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I opened a blank notepad and started writing. Ideas. Contacts. Gaps in the market Chad's shiny vision completely missed. I listed every weakness I knew the company had because I helped build the damn thing. Over the next few weeks, while applying for jobs just to stay afloat, I quietly started building a business model. I didn't need investors. I didn't need a co-founder. I just needed a quiet space, some coffee, and time. My wife believed in me, and that was all I needed. I launched a small tech consultancy focused on mid-sized businesses, precisely the ones Chad ignored because they didn't look sexy in a pitch deck. I called in old clients who trusted me. One by one, they returned. Word spread. I didn't advertise. I didn't brag. I let my work speak. Within 6 months, I had 5 full-time contractors and a waiting list. Then came the news. Chad's big pivot had failed. He spent millions on a software upgrade no one wanted. Key clients left. Morale hit rock bottom. His arrogance had blinded him to the basics. I watched quietly from my modest office as headlines popped up. Leadership shakeup coming. Product launch delayed indefinitely. Major clients flee to smaller, specialized firms. I knew what was happening, and I knew what was coming. Because his former clients, they were now mine, and I was just getting started. In the months that followed, my little consultancy turned into something much bigger. The clients that once made Chad's company look good were now fully signed with me. I wasn't just offering tech advice. I was solving their problems fast, affordably, and with a human touch they hadn't felt in years. They didn't need a flashy pitch deck or a robotic chatbot. They needed someone who listened and delivered. And I was that guy. My team expanded to 10. We moved out of the co-working space into a clean, minimalist office with just enough room to feel real, but not enough to waste money. Every dollar we made went back into the business, and every review we received boosted our credibility. While Chad's company was hemorrhaging clients, mine was onboarding them like clockwork. The irony? Half of my clients were just looking for stability, something Chad's new fast and flashy model had thrown out the window. Word started spreading in the industry that the old guy who got fired was now running the hottest boutique tech firm in the state. I started getting calls from media outlets who loved the underdog angle. I kept a low profile, declined interviews, and just kept building. Meanwhile, Chad was losing control. His revolutionary internal system was exposed for being nothing more than a repackaged open source tool with expensive custom wrappers that barely worked. Deadlines were missed. Employees quit. I got messages on LinkedIn from former coworkers who were silently cheering me on. Some of them even asked if I was hiring. That's when I got bold. I placed a subtle ad in a local tech magazine. It simply read, "Looking for real solutions? We're still doing things the right way. Dan and Company." No logos, no rates, no website, just a phone number. That same week, Chad's company lost their biggest client, the one that accounted for nearly 40% of their revenue. And that client? They called my number. I picked up. They said, "We've been watching. We're ready to work with someone who doesn't treat us like a PR win." It was a surreal moment. The account was so big, I had to double my staff just to handle the onboarding. But I did it, and we nailed the launch. That's when things truly shifted. I started receiving resumes from Chad's current employees. Not just juniors, senior managers, engineers, sales execs. Apparently, morale had tanked so badly that they were ready to jump ship. I didn't take everyone, just the ones who aligned with my values. Work hard, stay humble, and do what's right. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call from a private equity firm. They said, "We're interested in acquiring a stake in your company. You're one of the fastest growing firms we've seen this year." I was speechless. I hadn't been planning on outside investment, but the offer they gave me was too good to ignore. I sold a 25% stake, kept full control, and used the cash to expand into 2 more cities. We opened offices in Dallas and Atlanta. Our new clients included names I had only dreamed of working with in the past. I knew Chad couldn't compete. His overhead was too high. His employees were demoralized. His clients had already seen what real service looked like. That's when I decided to make one final move. I had heard from a former coworker that Chad's lease was up on their flashy downtown office. They were desperate to downsize and had even considered subletting parts of the space. I made a call to the building owner. Turns out, the lease was indeed up, and they were entertaining new tenants. So I made an offer. A quiet, aggressive offer. And I got the space. The same space Chad once used to fire me was now mine. I didn't do anything flashy with it. No banners, no grand openings. Just a quiet renovation, a clean design, and a clear message to my staff. We work hard, and we treat people right. A week later, I got an email from Chad. Subject line, "Coffee?" I didn't reply. 2 days later, I saw him at a networking event. He looked tired, thinner, and a lot less smug. He walked over and said, "Didn't think I'd see you again. Not like this." I smiled and said, "Sometimes old dogs know a few tricks." He tried to laugh, but I could see the weight behind his eyes. I didn't rub it in. The months that followed that awkward networking event brought the final chapter of this long game full circle. My company had now grown into something I hadn't dared dream of when I was first fired. With offices in 3 major cities, a tight-knit team of 50 passionate employees, and a client roster that made industry insiders jealous, we were no longer just the underdog story. We were the benchmark. The industry quietly acknowledged our rise, but not everyone was quiet. Word on the street was that Chad's company, once a darling of the tech innovation world, was bleeding money. Layoffs, missed contracts, a lawsuit over a failed integration project. It all caught up to him. I hadn't lifted a finger to cause it. He did it to himself. And that's what made this feel even more justified. One morning, I got an email from one of the industry's largest conference organizers. They were doing a special panel on innovation and ethics in the tech world, and they wanted me to keynote. The panel title? Sustainable Growth and the Power of Principles. I didn't laugh, but I did sit back in my chair and take a deep breath. That same evening, while preparing for the keynote, I stumbled across an article online, one I didn't expect to see. It was titled, "The Rise and Fall of Chad Morris: How Tech's Flashiest CEO Lost Everything in 18 Months." My name wasn't mentioned directly, but reading between the lines, it was clear who the rising competitor was. There was a picture of Chad, sitting on the edge of his office desk, hair messy, eyes hollow, and the caption read, "Once the future of enterprise software, now a cautionary tale." That photo stuck with me because I wasn't celebrating his downfall. I was remembering the man who stood above me, smirking, calling me outdated, irrelevant, and too old. The man who threw away decades of my experience because he wanted a younger, trendier image. I showed up to the conference not with swagger, but with sincerity. My keynote wasn't revengeful, it was reflective. I talked about how firing someone can do more damage than anyone imagines, especially when it's based on assumptions rather than merit. The crowd applauded, not wildly, but respectfully. Afterward, a young man came up to me and said, "My dad was laid off at 52. He never recovered. Seeing what you've done, it gives me hope for people like him." That hit me harder than anything. I walked out of that convention center knowing I had already won the only battle that mattered. That night, while sipping coffee at a quiet cafe, I received a LinkedIn message from, of all people, Chad. It read, "You were right. I didn't see your value. I should have." For a moment, I considered replying. But what was there to say? The universe had already answered for me. A few weeks later, I heard that Chad had sold what was left of his company to a minor competitor for scraps. His name no longer came up in boardrooms or tech panels. He had vanished into irrelevance. Meanwhile, I decided to step away from daily operations, handing over CEO duties to a brilliant young woman I'd met